Welcome to Just Wanna Quilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School, where we explore all kinds of things, stories about quilting, tools, field trips, maybe some famous quilters stop by, and a little bit of copyright thrown in just for fun. I'm Elizabeth Townsend Guard. I'm a law professor at Tulane University Law School, and I just wanna quilt. So today we're talking to Melanie McNeil. She is part of our Quilting Army. She makes medallion quilts, and she sent us one, so we're super psyched about that. She loves quilting history. She talks to us about all kinds of things. Her blog is catbergquilts.wordpress.com, and we have lots of things to chat about. All right, so just for posterity, since we're going to donate these interviews, tell me your name and where you're calling from.
Okay, my name's Melanie McNeil, and I'm calling from Coralville, Iowa. I am a member of the Old Capitol Quilters Guild that's based in Iowa City, and this year I'm serving as a co-president.
That's so cool. What do you have to do as co-president?
Oh my gosh. Well, in a normal year, a president would basically run the meetings, which is very easy for anybody who doesn't mind a little tiny bit of public speaking, and write a newsletter item for each month's newsletter, and that's just about it. But this year has been an interesting year, and so it's been a little bit more involved than that.
What happened?
Well, mostly that this is the first year that we've actually had co-presidents. So I'm co-presidenting with a friend of mine, and she's had, between health issues and travel, she's been gone for a few of the months. And at the same time, it's been clear to me that the Guild's been running a little bit on autopilot for a while. Now, my son's a pilot, so I know autopilot is a good thing, but there's a point where you have to pay attention again.
That's funny.
Yeah. So we've been working on some different things like bylaw reviews, and I mentioned in the note on the JustWannaQuilt Facebook page that I went to a Guild network meeting recently. That was last weekend, and I went as a representative of the Guild, from both being a president, and also I'm on the program committee. And the Guild meeting is intended, the network meeting is intended to give the different guilds that are members an opportunity to talk about some of the programs that they've had that have been particularly successful, what things they have coming up, fundraising challenges, membership challenges, and things like that. So in presidenting, part of the shifting out of autopilot that I mentioned has been, sort of taking a hard look at the Guild again, and what are our, going back to good grief business school from way too long ago, but strengths and weaknesses and challenges and opportunities, and where are we in terms of the Guild for those matters. So we've been having some discussion over the last week or so about some of the concerns that the different board and committee members have with those issues that I brought up. So I'm the one who opened the can of worms.
That's interesting. So one of the questions I have is, what do you think the role of, what is for those that don't really are new to quilting that might be listening, let's go back to basics really quickly. What is a guild, and what's the purpose of a guild?
When I tell people I'm in a quilt guild, I explain to them that if you substitute the word club for guild, you'll probably have a pretty good idea of what that means. So it certainly isn't, the medieval status of being a guild member where you're one of a few licensed people who can make shoes in that town. It's not like that. It's a matter of, we're a group, we get together on a regular basis, and our intention as a quilt guild is to share our appreciation for quilts and quilting, and to encourage that in other people.
And do you think that guilds, what role do you think guilds play in the ecosystem of the quilting world right now?
That would be really hard for me to say, because I've been in this guild for 10 or 11 years now, and that is most of the time that I've been quilting.
Yeah.
And so I don't have a lot of concept of it, of being outside of that realm. I'm just not a good person to answer that question.
Yeah. Do you feel like the guild is like, I always think about anchors. Is it sort of one of your anchors for quilting? Like, do you get idea? Like, what is I guess maybe what does the guild mean for you personally? Like, what role does the guild play in your life?
Oh gosh. I would say that it doesn't play a very big role in my personal quilting life.
Interesting.
I don't, while the most fun thing, and probably most anyone would tell you this, the most fun thing of guild meetings is the show and tell part,
Yeah.
where different workers come up and show off what they have been working on. And
Yeah.
that's a great treat. And honestly, I love quilts, whether they're beautiful or ugly, because, they're a handmade thing. They're a wonderful thing. They're an expression of the person who made them, or an expression of who they made them for, which can be a different thing.
Right.
But so that part of the meeting is probably the primary thing for me. I will also admit that one of my very best friends is a guild member, and we kind of found each other through the guild. And a lot of the times I have thought over the last few years, if it weren't for Beth, I probably just wouldn't go to guild meetings anymore. So there again, maybe I'm saying the wrong thing there, but
yeah,
it can be true that guild is largely a social, really a social, as opposed to something that is very useful to me from the standpoint of the quilting itself.
Right. No, I hear ya. All right. Well, did we have field trips to talk about too? Did you go on an adventure? I can't remember. I'm looking right now. My notes. I'm kind of disorganized.
One this guild network meeting, which was interesting.
Yeah.
I can tell you a little bit about that if you're interested.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd love it.
Oh. And then the other thing was I went to a workshop recently, and that was a lot of fun. So I'll start with the network meeting, though.
Okay, sounds good.
The network that my guild is part of is called the Eastern Iowa Quilt Network. And as the name implies, it covers Eastern Iowa and part of kind of South Central Iowa as well. But it's a group of 38 or maybe a couple more than that, maybe 40 guilds that are part of this group, and there is some amount of membership fee that the guild pays for it, but I think it's pretty nominal. And the intention for it is just, again, to give it kind of an outlet and a sounding board for groups to get together. We get together only once a year and can share information. Now, the kind of funny thing about it is you can share information, but the intention of it is maybe slightly different than what the setup allows for. Because what the setup allows for is each of those guilds actually gets a whole 4-minute time slot to present about highlights about their guild. And so you don't really get a lot of information, and you don't get to convey a lot of information in a 4-minute slot. So it's a little bit difficult. I don't know if another format might help that more, but that's what they do.
Interesting.
One of the things that I think, there are a couple of things that guilds struggle with, where here in Eastern Iowa, my guild's relatively large. We have about 125 paid members. That's big here. And so there's the guild that's north of here that's a couple hundred, and there's a guild that's east of here in the Quad Cities area that's about the same size as ours. I think there's one that's west of here in Grinnell that's about 75 people. Most of the guilds are small. They're less than 50 people. And so attendance at any given meeting might be anywhere for them between, say 25 and 30 or 40 people. Well, when you've got that small of a group, even if they're paying their annual membership fee, each of those members paying their fee to their own guild of, say, $15, $20, $25, there isn't a whole lot guilds can do with that kind of money. Those funds don't pay for a lot of programs. If you've got 40 full at $20 a piece, that's a whole $800. Well, what do you get out of that? You might get 3 paid programs for the year out of that kind of a budget.
Right.
And if you're also paying for things like batting for donation quilts and stuff like that, then gosh, it goes even even less. So one of the things that I out of our meeting, I'm talking a lot. I'm talking really fast here, so interrupt anytime if you want me to. No,
stop. It's good. But, it's good. Yeah.
Okay. One of the things that I found is how incredibly fortunate my guild is, because it's relatively large and because we actually have a pretty healthy treasury. We are not scraping by. We can do some fun things. We can bring in speakers, but we still have challenges, even though they're not monetary. So it was
what kind of challenges do you have? Yeah. What kind of challenges do you have that are not monetary?
Yeah. One of the things is declining membership over time. And so if it's like every organization where to continue sustaining that organization, you need to continue to bring in new members. And where do you find them? And, frankly, my guild membership, that I'm 57 and I'm one of the younger ones in the guild. So,
Right. It's the only place in my life that I feel young. It's very funny, right? You're like, oh, you're the baby. Not anywhere else. Right.
Yeah. So, so when you have the older members and they, at some point, perhaps they're not quilting anymore and they think, well, gosh, it's too hard to get out for an evening meeting. I don't drive very well after dark anymore. I don't want to do that. I can't go out in the winter. There's a lot of different reasons why people stop coming, and that don't necessarily have to do with they're ill or they're even deceased. It's just at a point they're just not going to come anymore. And so how do you replace them with younger members?
Yeah. And you don't see the younger members engaging in the guilds, at least in your guild. Is that what you're saying?
Right. We have a couple of members who are in their 30s, I think.
Yeah.
Of 125, there's literally a handful that are younger than, say, 40.
Interesting.
And so it's really small and it's really skewed. And it reminds me.
Yeah. Do you think that the guilds are, sorry, I interrupted you. Mind you of what?
That's okay.
No, tell me. Mind you. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
When I was an investment manager, I worked with an order of nuns. And I remember one year that they had, I think, 3 new novitiates who were coming in who were in their 30s, and they were so excited.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see. Like, the question is, as the population gets older, do we join these guilds or are the guilds dying? Like, I can't quite figure out, is it like, well, once you're retired, you join a guild, and so you'll always have this kind of older population? Or is it, well, that was a generational thing and it's not going to continue? I don't know. I don't know if the guilds were ever young. I guess that's a question we should think about. Were there guilds is this what guilds always look like our older quilters? Or is this something we're seeing now? And I don't know the answer. I hadn't even thought about that question, what guilds look like over time.
Well, my guild's 37 years old. And so if you take the longest term members of the guild, they were, in their early 40s when that started.
Interesting. So so that would mean that it's really interesting, isn't it? I don't know.
Might be,
Interesting. I don't know. These are interesting questions to think about, aren't they? So
yes, they are.
Well, will you continue? Yeah, go ahead.
I know we're not unique. I know that other guilds have this, and like I said, all types of other, organizations have the same kind of problem.
Yeah.
So, but what to do about it is a big question. And so, I'm besides being a co-president, I'm also on the program committee. So we're trying to have a variety of different speakers and workshops that cross art quilting and what would be considered modern quilting and more of traditional piecing and applique and just kind of try to run the whole range on it so that we've got good coverage to appeal to all the different interests.
Yeah.
And somehow that doesn't seem to be enough. And so how to solve that? I don't know. I don't know how to fix that.
Yeah. Because what your goal is to increase the membership and also younger membership, attract younger people so you have more of a variety of people. Right?
Well, we need a variety of people. We also need people who are willing to, frankly, to volunteer for the next go round.
Yeah.
And so, the membership of the Guild is older, and many of them have been in the group for many, many years. And when you say, gee, we need volunteers to do whatever, a lot of them will look at each other and say, I already did that. It's not my turn.
Yeah.
Well, guess it still is your turn, because you have to take a turn every 3 or 4 or 5 years, or we just plain can't run. We can't function if you volunteer.
Now, do you have to put that in your bylaws or in your whatever rules you have for the Quilt Guild of like minimum volunteer hours or anything like that?
Oh, no. It's an interesting thought, but I think, boy, if you wanted to chase people out of the group, you would do it really easily that way.
Yeah. Right. Right. Oh, it's complicated, isn't it? Life is complicated.
It's really complicated. Yeah. It's hard to know what to do with that.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, super interesting. Will you keep us posted as you continue on with your journey with these? What we're gonna be doing is thinking through a project for guilds, like thinking through what the guild is and what role they play. And I would love for you to be part of thinking that through, what kind of questions we should be asking, because I bet you have questions that you'd like to ask if we had a survey or something going out to guilds from your experience. It would be really interesting. So that's one project we've got that we're thinking about.
Yeah. And you had posed the question in the Facebook group a couple of days ago about, gee, should this group be a guild? And,
yeah, right. Right. And people said no. Right? So I posed the question, should Just Wanna Quilt be a guild? Because I've gotten asked that question of, what are you? And I'm like, I don't know. We're like a group of people who talk about stuff. I'm like, I don't know, research questions, a research group, our Quilting Army. And so I posted it, and the response back was, we don't want it to be a guild, which I thought was kind of interesting, right?
Well, I think that more the concern is what would be the purpose of calling it a guild? What does that mean?
Yeah.
And if
hold on, we lost you. Try one more time. You cut out. What is the purpose of a guild? Yeah, hold on, Melanie, we lost you for just a second. So when you said, what's the purpose of a guild? Then we lost the internet connection. So go ahead. Tell me more about your thoughts about that.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can. Totally.
Okay. So it's just, I think that the term guild implies some kind of a boundary of some type, and maybe that's where the problem is there's some type of a boundary or some type of a membership qualification of, you have to be a member.
Yeah.
And maybe people are feeling that that's too constraining in some way.
Yeah, I don't know. They really were very anti-guild. Like, we don't want to be a guild. We want to be what we are, which is this Quilting Army thing. For me, I want to just make sure that, it was a really interesting, I thought they would want to be a guild for some reason. I don't know, but they didn't. So they also didn't want Pinterest. So I thought that was interesting too. So we're going to try to figure out what we are. I mean, I know what I want. I love the fact that we've got now how many, like, it started out, we just started in February. So we've got, and I know we're not huge. We're not huge. We're not thousands of millions of people, but we don't want that anyway, because, that's too confused. I'm already kind of overwhelmed by how many, but we've got 367 members. And these are people like you. I know, right? 367 members, and people are posting about the field trips and their experiences and copyright questions and all kinds of things. And I think I really do, for my purposes, I really want to understand the quilting industry so I can understand the underlying legal issues that arise. But it's really cool. And they're off, like, there's 5 of them. There's more than 5 at Paducah. So, we're hitting different spaces and experiencing it. And we just got to figure out how to build that army. When we did the giveaway, the idea of the giveaway was to build our strength as a team, as an army. And so I want to try to figure out how we do more of those activities, because what we see with these groups and with your guild and other places is that you may have members, but you don't have active members. And so I want an active army that we can say, okay, army, or someone else can say, hey, army, I've got this question. And then we get a lot of response, or we get a lot of participation. And so that's thinking through how to build the army and an identity with the army. And I thought it might be a guild, but it wasn't guild. So we got to think about what it is and what that means. And also a lot of quilt entrepreneurs, a lot of people who want to who have businesses or want to boost their business and how to help them. So we got some thinking to do. And May is our thinking month. Think about what we want to do and who we are. And keep posting the polls, because we're not about popularity, but it helps you understand like what people like and don't like, and that tells us about the quilting industry as well, So I don't know. I think it's really interesting. So I don't know what we
have you had more feedback on the idea of a blog?
Yes. Well, I'm going to. I think I'm going to, I don't know, I go back and forth. I used to have to blog for my job, so I can blog, but people that seems a little hard for people, the blogging part. Everybody seems okay with posting. They like to post. And even Facebook Live videos, people are cool with that. But the blogging is just like a little too formal, I think, for people. I think I'm going to try to blog, but just kind of about what's going on, so we have a record of what's going on. But but it doesn't, I don't know. And I know that you're supposed to build up, like the experts always say, like you build up your subscription list and a newsletter and all of that, but that's a lot of work. And I don't know where we want to put our time. It's what you're saying about, there's only so much time. And so again, it's really thinking through, we don't want to just be doing what everybody else is doing. That's really not the point of this. So we're just trying to understand what it is why we all love to quilt, and how the industry supports or hampers what we do, right? And they're all doing it for us, right? All those shops and all the tools and all of that is because they think we'll purchase it to make our quilting better. And so we're trying to understand what that is. And so I don't want to get off track by newsletters and other things that take up time,
I would recommend, just from my personal feelings, this is with no science behind it, but I wouldn't bother with any kind of a newsletter at this point. But as to any blogging that you do, remember that it is primarily for your own use. Yeah. And so whatever anyone else gets from it is a bonus if anyone else gets anything from it. But if it makes sense to you for your research to do any kind of a online record keeping, documentation, storytelling about what you're learning, then I think that it could be worth it to you. But remember, it's for you and not for other people.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. And I mean, I get this question a lot from people that don't know the project of, because I call it a research podcast, and they say, well, why? And Abby Glassenberg asked this question when she interviewed me. And I was, well, I'm going to be interviewing all these people and their stories are so cool. Why wouldn't I want to share what I'm learning as I go? Right? Like that, it seemed to me, like from the second interview was like, oh my gosh, like the first one was amazing. It was Bill and Weeks of a Modern Quilt Studio, and they were amazing. And my second one was a regular person, Julia, and hers was amazing. It was like, I can't keep this to myself. These are so cool. So now we're at the part where I'm going to start to write and to really think about these questions. And again, how much do you share? How much don't you share? And the blog is really rough notes. Do you do and I'm thinking about doing a Google Doc where you can share it and put it on the website so that you see in real time the draft. My only worry about that is I'm still learning. So I'm worried about someone taking it out of context. And so that's my only concern with the research side of it, because, the drafting, the writing and all that. And I've never done anything where I've just sort of here's what I think today, and it might change tomorrow. That one, that part makes me a little nervous, but maybe that's just because I'm being shy. So I don't know. We have to go through,
I think you just go ahead and go with it, and maybe you need a disclosure at the top of everyone in your italic letters that just says, this is just notes, and
That's
don't,
right.
take it too much to heart. And if you have some discussion or disagreement or comment on it, I'd be happy to
Yeah.
hear it. Just
Yeah.
let it go.
Exactly. Well, I think that might happen. So, this is really fun, and I get to talk to people like you and have insight and input, and it's really changed the project in dramatic ways. And every time it's like this amazing, like, it's just a really cool project. It's kind of more than I had dreamed it would be. So next step is the writing and the more experimenting. So
Trying to put it together. Yeah.
Yeah. Starting to put it together. It's gotta. That's the job part. Like I gotta write. That's part of my job. So
Yeah. For any research, of course, you need to. And I'm not telling you anything new.
right.
You need to focus your questions so you know where you're going with it.
Yeah, and we've
There's
been
a
doing some work. So
here.
some of the, I'll be posting more of them. But like, there's a lot of law professors doing, particularly intellectual property law professors, doing the work that I do. And so I've been talking to them about their projects and how they go about it. And right now, we're just doing a sort of a qualitative landscape of what is quilting. So that'll continue probably a couple more months, and that will be the first paper. And then we'll start to do a deep dive on specific issues, specific parts of the industry, all of that. So starting probably in June, that it'll shift a little bit on like what happens with the podcast and also with the project. But right now we're still trying to get a sense of like all of it. Like we're still looking at, machines and just in general, just looking at all of the system. So it's super fun. I am super psyched you called in and chatted with us. Will you come back and chat more? Because it's fun to chat with you. And
Anytime.
that's great. All right. And as we go, I'll start posting some ideas, and I'd love for you to weigh in, because we are trying to figure out who we are, and we're not quite sure yet what that is. So it's awesome.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you ever want an opinion, I probably have one. So
What's so funny about your work? So you sent the little, the small little one, right? Didn't you send me a small? Yeah. So
yeah.
Your work is gorgeous. I love your work. So for those that I haven't posted her to your first interview, which will get posted before we post this one, but you do medallion quilts. And what I'm amazed at is you cannot tell online whether it's small or big. That to me sort of like, you'll be like, oh, it's 16 inches. Oh, it's 70 inches. And it's like, there is no way to like identify, like, and they're all gorgeous. So I just thought that was that's such a weird feeling of like, whoa, that one's a big one. I think you just posted one that you're like, I did this in a day and it's gargantuan. I was like, wow. Like, I did not know that.
The last one actually took 2 days, but
wow. It's amazing, but it's big, right? Like,
yeah, you're right though, because sometimes I look at photos, and most of those that I have on my blog, I have captioned with what size they are, but some of them I just have I don't for some reason, and I have no memory, and I think, oh my gosh, was that like 50 inches or 70 inches, or I have any idea. Yeah.
It's really weird. It's like an optical illusion. It is freaky, because you're like, this could be teeny tiny quilt. No, it's 100 inches long. It's like, whoa, like who knew? Like, it's very funny. So yeah, I think we should have a game of big or small. Do you think this is a big quilt or a small quilt? Like Melanie's quilts, big or small?
That would be fun.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you again for chatting. I do appreciate it. And the guilds, that's a whole thing. I really, I've been to now some guild shows and I guild meetings, and I'm supposed to go talk at guild meetings. And
yeah,
I don't know. I just, that whole world, it's important to the quilting industry. You can totally tell, but I don't understand it yet still. Like I can't quite get the economics of it yet. So.
I know a lot about guilds and I don't understand it either. So you're okay.
Okay, good. We'll see then. You made me feel better about the day. And yeah, so cool. Awesome. So what are you quilting? Are you quilting today?
I am. I'm working on a commission project. A friend and I are trading work, and I am going to make her a green man quilt. And
what is green?
set aside this 100 days to just experiment with different ways that I can learn how to tell stories with my quilts better, so that I can do a really great job with her Green Man quilt.
What is a Green Man? What's a Green Man quilt?
Green Man is a kind of a symbol that is a cross between pagan and early Christian. It has to do with the relationship between man and nature, and it comes out of a pagan tradition, but a lot of the early churches across Northern Europe have a Green Man kind of insignia or emblem carved into their, painted into their architecture. And so it actually crosses both, as I said, the pagan and the early Christian in Northern Europe. And so I'm working on that. And in my part of it right now is I'm working on learning to applique a rooster, which isn't a Green Man, but it's still, I'm learning from the process, and that's my intention.
I've just looked up Green Man. Wow, that's going to be complicated if you're doing a quilt. Yeah, you do need to make a rooster first, right? That's funny.
Yeah, a rooster will be a little easier, I think. So it's just things to learn.
Cool. Well, keep us posted on that. That's really interesting. Right. Super interesting. Okay, cool. Awesome. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. So this is Elizabeth Townsend-Gard. You've been listening to Just Wanna Quilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School. We want to hear from you. Join our army, our quilting army. Go to our Facebook page. Suggest people to be interviewed. Suggest yourself to be interviewed. We are excited to hear from you. But most importantly, I hope you get a chance to quilt today.